Hi, Facebook.
I'm Allie.
I'm Kara.
And today we're going to talk about the summer slide. But first, what I want to talk to you about are these Schnucks cards. These are a super easy way to fundraise for the clinic. So basically, whenever you go to Schnucks, you just have them scan this, and money will go towards the clinic. So I'm not exactly sure what the profit margin is, to be honest, but we have some at the clinic that you can grab. If you're a clinic parent and you're coming, you can grab some, or I'm sure you can get more at Schnucks. We don't have enough to hand out to everybody right now, but it's just an easy way. Also remember that you can always use smile.amazon.com to have money from your Amazon purchases, which... Yeah. Gotta love Amazon.
Yep.
So you can always do that too. And it's just, it doesn't take any money from you. It's just a way for us to get donations. So today we're going to talk about the summer slide. And basically many children, we're going to be talking about mostly like those kindergarten, first grade, even some into second grade kids. And this can really apply to older children too. But obviously we see kids until they turn 7. So, many children after school is over don't really engage in a lot of learning activities in the summer. And so they start to fall behind their peers once the new school year begins if they're not continually using some of those academic skills that they had learned prior. So summer learning loss, or what is called the summer slide, is a phenomenon that occurs when children forget academic material after taking long breaks from school. So Kara's going to talk a little bit about the research. There's been research done extensively on this topic, actually.
Yes, so some of the research that we know tells us that on average, students can lose about 2 months of grade level equivalency. That can be in math and in reading. And a lot of teachers spend the first 4 to 6 weeks of the new school year just reteaching all of that material from the previous year because of this phenomenon. We know that summer learning loss can have a greater impact on low-income students and really contribute to that achievement gap between them and other higher-income peers. We've seen research that has spanned over 100 years showing that students who take a standardized assessment at the end of the summer have a higher score than the same tests that they take. Lower score than this, or no.
So at the end of the school year, they take the test, and then at the end of the summer,
it's lower.
It's lower than
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, that's okay. I think you said I think you
said it backwards.
Yeah.
But we also know that summer learning loss is cumulative. So that means over time it's going to create a gap and just become more, and they could become more and more behind.
I thought that was really interesting.
Up to 2 and up to 5 years, I guess, behind by the time they reach high school. So that's a big reason why.
If every summer they're not working on their academic skills at all, then they just
going to accumulate,
getting behind and behind and behind and behind. Yeah.
So we want to kind of figure out what can we do to prevent the summer slide, and this is what we're going to talk about next: is how can we prevent that from happening?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest thing that all of the articles that we're going to put in the comments that share is just reading to your children. That is the number one thing that you can do, or encouraging them to read. So encouraging, if they can read, if they're starting to read books in school on their own, encouraging them to read for at least 20 minutes every day. Have them pick out their own books at the library. Going to the library is a great free resource. So, they can even use the librarian to find topics that they're really interested in, so that the books and things they're reading in the summer are really motivating to them. And when it's fun and interesting to them, they're going to want to read more.
Absolutely.
There's also so many great programs at the library to utilize in the summer, like just even things like Lego building or cooking schools, or things that we don't necessarily always think about being academic, but, there's a lot of math concepts that are involved, or, like the spatial concepts for Legos or things like that. So, utilize those free programs in your community. They're really, really great. The other thing is, so if they're not reading to themselves very often, or they can't read very well, is just reading aloud to your children. And even if it's like reading 3 times throughout the day, in the morning you're going to look at the newspaper or a magazine together. At lunch you're going to maybe look at some of the things that you're making for lunch and read the words on the corn dog box, or, look at the cereal box and talk about it. It doesn't have to be a book, just reading academic things, or books to make it, or not books, print, to make it more fun, even though it's still practicing those skills. And then just seeing you read throughout the day is going to encourage them to want to sit down and read as well. So you modeling the behaviors that you want them to be doing is going to be great. Another thing is to think about unplugging from technology, which is really hard to do. At my house, I have a 3-year-old who loves her iPad, but we set a timer on the iPad. She gets 30 minutes, and when it's done, it's done.
You do the same thing.
Yeah, and we have to. And I kind of like actually doing the timer because then it's the iPad's fault that it's done. It's not my decision. It's just the iPad has made the decision.
Yes.
So, it helps cut down on the upset of being done with it. But, getting outside, we've been doing a lot of while we're swinging on the swings, we talk about what words rhyme. Does green and purple rhyme or green and mean rhyme? Just doing fun things like that, going for a walk and talking about, what you see or count so many things, using numbers. Give your children books in the car for long car rides, looking through books or working on writing skills with a whiteboard, things like that, where they can erase and practice doing shapes and stuff like that.
Even an audiobook.
Yeah, right? And doing audiobooks, listen to audiobooks in the car. And then you can even create your own books, create books of pictures your kids really like, or make a book about a trip that you went on with pictures and have them write their own story or things like that. So it's shown that kids reading 4 to 6 books, and we're assuming those are more chapter books for the older ages, prevents decline in that summer slide. So, just as much reading as you can do throughout the day is really, really going to benefit them.
Yeah, so a lot of the things that Allie was talking about, as far as math area too, because reading and math are probably the two, most important areas that a lot of these studies are focusing on, a lot of standardized assessments are focusing on. Just practicing, kind of estimation skills, like guessing how far or how long the trip is going to be, or computing the miles, those kinds of things, talking about those things with your children and having them problem solve through those things. Or providing just math, workbooks. Obviously not every kid's going to want to do workbooks every day, but if you are able to get it there, again, the library has a lot of these resources for free that you can do during quiet times. Just set aside a quiet time during the day, or a couple different quiet times if you can, that they can work on these things that they, so that they don't prevent, we can prevent the summer slide from happening. Maybe even keeping a reading log, so if your child is old enough that they can keep their own log and calculate the minutes read each week. This was not in any of the articles, but the Six Flags reading program is still around.
A lot of libraries have reading programs too.
Use that reading log to calculate how many.
It's motivating to have a goal,
or come up with your own family motivation
reward.
You fill out the reading log, and after so many minutes, then they get to do whatever they get to go get ice cream, whatever the reward is, or they get to go play with it, have a play date with a best friend or something. Even just cooking with your child. You can have them follow those recipes. You can learn a lot about fractions and measuring skills with cooking, and just reading the words on the box and the instructions on those recipes, and just a lot of great vocabulary on those. And just practicing writing. So maybe over the summer, if they're going to go to camp and they want to send a postcard, they could practice their writing skills that way, or keeping a summer journal. Or even authoring something online. There's so many blogs out there that, I'm sure there's some that are kid-friendly. Or just writing letters, just old-fashioned letters to relatives.
What grandma and grandpa doesn't want to get a letter?
Send a letter to grandma and grandpa, or a cousin that lives far away, I think that's kind of lost too, now that nobody gets...
Thank you notes, work on those thank you notes from birthday 6 months ago, who cares?
Yeah, send a little note, have them work on those skills. Yeah. So, and I think Allie touched on this, but when kids see that, the family is reading and that they are enjoying it too, that they're going to be more motivated, if it's something fun. So that's another point that she mentioned. If it's something that they get to pick out, or the topic of the book is something that they really love, they're going to want to do it more and more. And that's just going to increase, or help fix the gap with all of those things. So I think that was all at the end of my...
Yeah. So if you need ideas for academic stuff in terms of writing or working on letters or things like that, we do have a Pinterest page that has a board on there for some of the literacy ideas and things. So check out Pinterest. There's so many free activities and ideas online. So
go to your library. Go to your library. There's so many. Everything is free at the library, and the class. There's programs. There's reading, like story time at the
They have
library.
music groups.
Music,
Yeah.
yeah, so many different programs. Or just utilize the librarians because that's their job. And I'm sure they're probably underutilized in a lot of places. So ask them, have them help you find things, you know, do a summer research project, whatever it may be. But the library is really going to be a great step for a lot of families that maybe they can't go out and buy those books. So just utilize that library.
Yep.
Free resource.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone.
If you have any questions, leave them below, and we'll put our links in the bottom.
Yeah, we have lots of good resources on the summer slide. So we'll put
All
those in there.
right.
Thanks.
Thanks, Facebook.